Hi, so it's Cara, and today I'm filming my January wrap up. Yay! So this month I finished 8 books, which, considering some of them were pretty long, I'm quite happy about. 2 of them, if you watched my December wrap up, I'd already started, and there were 2 books that I kind of started that I didn't finish. So let's talk about the books. So this month I read The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss and The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. Let's talk about this one first. So this is the second book in the Kingkiller Chronicles. It follows this guy here, Quoth. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It makes a comment about how no one can pronounce his name. So I try. I know I'm probably wrong, but it is like the whole series is just like a really long tale about his life, following all the different things he does. So from like young childhood right through, and in this he's about 16, 17 throughout this, but he gets up to a lot of things. So I can't really explain plot. You kind of need to read the first one too. It's a sequel, so no plot, but essentially this series does follow his entire life. It is a chronicle. I'm excited to see where book 3 goes because there are a lot of hints and stuff about what will be happening in his life that haven't happened yet. I've only got one more book, so I want to know that. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was better than the first one, only because I found certain plot points in the first one very, like, the way it writes is very not linear plot. It's a linear plot progression, but it doesn't build to a final conclusion. It kind of builds and falls and builds and falls and builds and falls. And in the first one, I didn't find as many of the builds as interesting, whereas this one, every little like subplotty thing was really, really good. And it was so good. 5 stars. If you read the first one, I felt a little bored, which I did. It took me ages to read it. This one's better. Just saying, it's better. Of course, I picked up this one, which is part of the same world, but not part of Quoth's chronicles in his life. And instead follows this girl, Ori, that he meets when he's at university. And this is high fantasy, by the way. Don't point that out. People should know that by now. This is high fantasy. And he's at this university, and he meets this girl. Like, he spends most of his time in the story at this university. And he meets this girl called Ori, and she's really weird, but cool weird. And this is like a little story about her, but it doesn't have like a story progression as you would expect. It's more kind of just really strange. Like it says in the start, you might not like this, but he wanted to polish it anyway. And I really liked it. I actually did. I kind of really fell in love with her as a character. And although it didn't have a climax buildy thing, it almost felt like it did. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it, but 5 stars. If you are willing to accept weird storytelling, try this. Try it. But make sure you've read the others first, because it wouldn't make sense with that. But otherwise it would just be a really weird story. So one of the books I was half reading at the start of, I had already half finished at the start of January, was The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This follows a like dystopian future world fantasy kind of thing in which half the population of the area are like a different race. They have silver blood and superpowers. And she, the girl, what's her name? Can't remember what's her name. I don't know, let me check. That's alright. Looking it up on my iPad. Her name is Mare. She is a red person, so she has red blood, normal blood, and they are the lower class. And she accidentally gets caught up in the silver class, and turns out she has powers that she shouldn't have because she's a red and has red blood, not silver blood. And things kind of go crazy, and it's looking at like control of minorities, even though the red are technically kind of a majority, but the poor and ruling classes, and it's really good. Like underground resistance, it's a dystopian, it's a revolutionary kind of thing going on, but it is really good. It did have a slow beginning. I didn't quite get the beginning, but when I got into it, I really liked it and I enjoyed the ending. And I'm excited to see what happens in book 2 because left it a bit of a cliffhanger, little cliffhanger, not a bad cliffhanger, a little cliffhanger. And I think I gave it 4 stars total, maybe 4.5 because I did have that slow start. Then the other book I was halfway through at the start of the month was Queen of the Tealing by Erica Johansson. This follows, oh god, it feels like so long since I've read these. This follows Kelsey, who is a long lost, not really long lost, but a hidden princess. She was taken away or hidden from the ruling people when she was a child, because in this world the crown is very ruthless, and if you're queen, you might not necessarily be queen for long. And so she was hidden when she was a baby so that she could come and take the throne and be alive at the time. This is high fantasy, but it's also kind of like set in the future. Like there's references to our current time. It's like not post-apocalyptic, but post-war kind of, where they've started a new feudal society with kings and queens and stuff. But it does kind of play like it's in the future, like far in the future. And it is really, really good. This is adult fantasy, does have adult stuff, and I really loved the political, like the idea, it really expressed well the idea that there's not always a perfect right path. Like every path you take in the step towards right will have negative consequences as well. Like she tries to do great things and ends up with some nasty consequences there. Like she helps one group and can't help another. Like real political stuff, like realistic political intrigue, which is what I liked about Game of Thrones, and that's what I liked about this. And Kelsey was a really good character, I felt, and I really enjoyed this. Though it has huge chapters, like this is like a 450-page novel, and there were like 10 chapters. It was huge. Like I felt like I took forever to read it because I had to work so hard to get through every chapter. But all in all, 5 stars. Really, really good. I really liked this. Much recommend. Also excited for movie, also excited for sequel. Then I read The Glass Sentence by S.E. Grove. This is a middle grade fantasy kind of, in which in this world, which is supposed to be like our world, suddenly something happened and the world kind of became jumbled and different areas became different time zones, and like it's strange, but the method behind how it all works takes a lot of like the whole book to really understand. But it was really fun. The characters were really interesting. My one problem with this, well, I kind of had 2 problems that kind of go hand in hand. One was that sometimes it would be a bit info dumpy, which I'm not a big fan of, but I can make my way through. But the other problem was that in other times I wouldn't get enough information, so I'd kind of be wandering along being like, hang on, what's happening? And that I found worse than the info dumps. So I enjoyed it overall, but I did find that like I had to like not scroll back to catch up, but I'd be reading a paragraph and have no idea what was happening until I got like 2 more paragraphs down and it explained it, which I didn't like that much. But I am definitely invested in these characters. It follows Sophia and Theo, Sophia's uncle has gone missing. He was a cartographer who kind of tried to map using memory. It's a weird map system too, it's hard to understand, but they map memories of areas to try and do things, and he did that, and he was kidnapped and things are happening and she's trying to find where he's gone and solve the problem, and it goes crazy from there. The plot gets intense. But I really enjoyed number one, the plot, and number two, the characters. But I just found sometimes the world wasn't explained well enough, when other times it was info dumped. But it was okay. The writing style was probably the hardest thing to get around, but the plot and the characters were really good. So I'm definitely going to be picking up the second one. This was the author's first novel, so hopefully with a bit more experience, those problems can be ironed out. 4.5 stars. And then we have The Prisoner of Night and Fog by Anne Blankman. I was going to say these are out of order, but I've already said that, so I don't need to repeat myself. This is a World War II historical novel set before World War II, kind of in the rise of Hitler after World War I. And it follows Gretchen, whose father supposedly died for Hitler and was proclaimed as a martyr, and so her family received benefits from the Nazi Party, the National Socialist Party, because of that. And then she hears from a reporter who thinks, although this happened 10 years ago, thinks that it wasn't her dad dying for Hitler, and that her dad had been killed and it had been played off like he died for Hitler. And yeah, so it essentially follows this girl trying to come to grips with what the Nazi Party means and what she thought it meant as an innocent young girl, and being enlightened, I guess. I don't know how realistic it is. Some of it bases itself around true events, but I feel like Gretchen as a character would be a rarity. I don't know. I think this was still very much at the stage where the National Socialist Party was looking pretty okay for most of Germany. They weren't the National Socialist Party. Some people were, the ones that were being discriminated against, but much of Germany was pro-Hitler, at that time. And so it follows her personal struggles, romance, all that kind of stuff in that climate, and I really enjoyed it. It was definitely young adulty, but I didn't mind that. It's young adult. I don't mind. Except here it was marketed as adult in Australia. At my bookstore anyway, it was put in the adult section because there was no indication anywhere on it that it's young adult. So I guess I would definitely say this is young adult. I wouldn't try and confuse it for an adult because it reads like a young adult. And it's really good. I did notice, I have this weird, my pages change colour. It's like they ran out of a certain type of paper halfway through, and that was weird. That confused me, but oh well. I'm really excited for the second one of these because I want to see how Gretchen and her life progresses throughout as the build up to World War II continues, because that's kind of where it's going. I think I gave this 4.5 stars, something like that. And then I read All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is another World War One story? World War Two. World War Two. It has to be World War Two, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm trying to think what times did it have written here? I'm pretty sure it's World War Two. Yeah. This is a World War II historical novel that follows a little French girl who's blind and a little German boy who's part of the Hitler Youth and is being sent out as a soldier. It shows them from a young age through to when they're in their late teens, and he's a soldier in the city where she is hiding in France, and his job is to use radios to try and catch people, and it's really sad. It was really artfully written. It's hard to explain. So hard to explain. But the writing style was really gorgeous. Short chapters, which I love. I love short chapters. And it was just really well written. And the way the two stories were tied together, even though they were, for most of the novel were two separate stories, was really, really good. I really liked that. And so good. Hard to explain, but so good. Everyone raves about it. I also rave about it. Go pick it up because it's really good. Um, it's just really pretty. It's really pretty. If you like historical fiction, or if you want to get into really good historical fiction, pick this up. Like, this and The Book Thief are on like equal par for me because they're both really good. 5 stars. Then I read Ben Elton's Time and Time Again. This is my dad's book, which I got for him for Christmas, but I felt like I needed to read it, and I was in a historical fiction kind of mood, and this is technically historical fiction. This is like science fiction, historical fiction. It follows a guy called Hugh Stanton in 2025-ish, so like 11 years in the future. 10. We're in 2015. Gosh, what am I talking about? 10 years in the future. And he finds out that Isaac Newton had discovered a way to go back in time, but it was like a loop kind of thing where from a certain point it would loop back to another certain point. You couldn't just choose where you wanted to go. And he gets to go back to 1914 to try and stop the Great War. And he's going to stop the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and kill Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany in the hopes that without those big factors, the World War won't happen. And it is really interesting. Throughout most of it, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm going along. I get it. This is really good. This is really good. And then the end blew my mind. Like, blew my mind. Ben Elton is known for his mind-blowingness, I'm pretty sure. And I was definitely mind-blown. I would definitely pick this up again. The writing style, I'd kind of compare the character and like the way the story's written to kind of like a Robert Galbraith, J.K. Rowling kind of thing. I kind of had the same kind of vibe. The characters were similar. Like Hugh Stanton reminded me a lot of what's his name in The Cuckoo's Calling? The main character in The Cuckoo's Calling. They kind of reminded me of similar things, but the plot of this was just really good. I think I give this 5 stars just because of its mind-blowing ending, and people should definitely pick this up. It is really good. It's really good. Yeah. So those were the 8 books I did read this month, and so then there were 2 books that I started, and they are the Rogues Anthology by George R. R. Martin and Gardner Dozois, and the Monstrous Affections Anthology by Kelly Link and Gamma J. Grant. I read 1 story from each of these, and the plan is that I'll read a little bit every month-ish and slowly get them read. So I'll just quickly talk about the stories I did read. So from this one, I read the first story, which is by Joe Abercrombie, and it's called Tough Times All Over. It was really good. I gave it 5 stars. It follows this package that is going through all these different hands, being taken off people. Like it's a wanted package, and it's got like assassins and people trying to get it in this like fantasy worldish kind of, I think. And it was really funny seeing all the characters as like the package jumped hands. You kind of got a little story of a little bit of all their lives as it kind of jumps. And I really thought it was a really interesting way to tell a story, a short story, and I really loved it. And then I read, what's it called? Moriarty's Children by Paolo Bacigalupi. I don't know how to pronounce that. I vaguely remember hearing his name on Reagan's channel. That's as much as I could do. It follows a girl and like her weird relationship with like the kraken things of the sea, and it was creepy, but it was so good. Also gave this 5 stars. So those were the books I read in the month of January. 8 and a bit. Well, I guess the bit cancels out the bits of the 8 that I read in December, but that leaves me like 2 books behind on my Goodreads challenge. If I want to get to my Goodreads challenge, I need to read like 10 books a month. But I have plans for next month, so look out for that in my February TBR, which will be coming really soon. So let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of these, what you thought. Let's have a conversation. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with my January TBR. Yay!